The colony was called Haven Reach. It floated quietly at the edge of human space, far from borders and far from war. It was a place built for peace. Families lived there. Farmers worked the hydro fields. Children ran through wide corridors under artificial skies. There were no weapons, no military ships, only a small security force meant to stop accidents, not invasions. For years, Haven Reach had been a symbol of human hope. Humans believed that if they stayed peaceful, if they followed the rules of the galaxy, they would be left alone. They were wrong. The first warning came too late. Long-range sensors detected several unknown ships exiting hyperspace. The colony's control center tried to identify them. No response came back. Still, no one panicked. Alien ships passed through human space all the time. Trade vessels, explorers, diplomats. Then the ships changed formation. Energy readings spiked. Before anyone could react, the first orbital strike hit. A city vanished in a flash of white light. The shockwave tore through nearby habitats, ripping metal and glass apart. Alarms screamed across the colony. People ran. Parents grabbed children. Emergency shelters activated, but it was already too late. The alien fleet did not stop. They fired again and again. Residential districts burned. Hospitals collapsed. Escape ships tried to launch, but were destroyed before clearing the docks. Communications were jammed. No distress call escaped the system. Inside the colony council chamber, leaders watched the screens in horror. "This is a mistake," one of them said. "They must think we're military." They sent surrender signals. They sent identification codes. They sent messages in every known galactic language. There was no reply. The attack slowed, but not because of mercy. The alien ships descended closer, targeting infrastructure with careful precision. Power stations, water processors, air recyclers. They wanted survivors, but not for long. Alien ground forces landed soon after. Tall, armored figures marched through the ruins. They moved calmly, without fear, without urgency. Surveillance footage later showed them executing wounded civilians, burning shelters, marking areas as cleared. One alien officer was heard speaking through an open channel. "Human resistance is insignificant. Civilization compliance will be enforced." Those words were recorded. Those words would echo across the galaxy later. Within 1 hour, Haven Reach was silent. Over 3 million humans were dead. No soldiers, no battles, just an atrocity. News of the destruction reached Earth 12 hours later. The message arrived incomplete, damaged by interference, but the meaning was clear enough. A human analyst froze as the data finished playing. Her hands shook as she replayed the footage again and again. Cities burning, children screaming, alien soldiers walking through fire without hesitation. The room filled with silence. Within minutes, the highest leaders of Earth were summoned. Military commanders, diplomats, scientists, all watched the recordings together. No one spoke. Some looked away. Others stared until their eyes burned. Finally, a single question was asked. Who did this? The answer came quickly. The attackers were members of a powerful galactic alliance. The same alliance that had warned humans before. The same alliance that believed humanity was too emotional and too dangerous to be fully trusted. Earth sent a formal request to the Galactic Council. They asked for an explanation. They asked for justice. They asked for accountability. The reply came 2 days later. The Galactic Council reviewed the incident and ruled it a necessary enforcement action. According to them, Haven Reach had violated unknown regulations. The punishment was considered acceptable. Acceptable. That word spread across Earth like poison. Human news channels tried to stay calm. Reporters used careful language. Officials asked the population to remain peaceful. But the images leaked anyway. People saw the truth. Families watched entire cities die. Children asked why no one saved them. And slowly, something changed. On Earth, the streets were quiet. There were no riots, no screaming crowds, no calls for revenge. Instead, factories shut down their civilian lines and quietly reopened under military command. Shipyards that had been idle for decades became active again. Old designs were pulled from archives. Forbidden weapons were discussed again, not with excitement, but with cold focus. Human diplomats stopped attending galactic meetings. Trade ships returned home. Human space went dark. To outsiders, it looked like fear. It was not. In a secured chamber deep beneath Earth's surface, a small group of leaders stood around a table. No cameras were allowed. No recordings were made. A single sentence was written on the wall in plain text. Civilization failed. One commander spoke at last. We followed their rules. We trusted their systems. We believed restraint would protect us. No one disagreed. Another added quietly, Haven Reach was unarmed. Silence followed. Then the final decision was made. Humanity would respond, but not with anger, not with chaos, with purpose. Far across the galaxy, alien commanders celebrated. They believed humans had learned their lesson. They believed Earth would submit. They were wrong, very wrong, because for the first time in human history, the species that had chosen civilization over strength had reached its limit. And when humanity reached that limit, it did not scream. It prepared. After Haven Reach was destroyed, the galaxy waited for humanity to react. Most species expected shouting, angry messages, threats sent across every channel. That was how young civilizations behaved. But Earth did none of those things. Human space went silent. No speeches were broadcast. No fleets crossed borders. No demands were made. Trade routes that once carried human ships every day suddenly became empty. Diplomatic stations powered down their lights and locked their doors. To the Galactic Council, this silence meant only one thing: fear. Council members met and laughed among themselves. Some said humans were finally learning their place. Others said Earth would soon beg for protection or mercy. They were wrong. Deep inside human territory, something else was happening. Human citizens were not told much. There were no dramatic announcements. No calls for volunteers. Life continued on the surface, calm and controlled. Schools stayed open. Cities functioned normally. But below the surface, under mountains and oceans, humanity moved with purpose. Factories that once built civilian ships changed quietly. Their designs were altered overnight. Cargo hulls became armor. Engine rooms were expanded. Power systems were reinforced. Shipyards that had been closed for decades came back to life. Ancient docks, long buried in history, were reactivated. Old human warships, considered unnecessary relics, were pulled from storage and rebuilt with modern systems. Engineers worked without pause, not with anger, with focus. Human military leaders did not shout orders. They did not speak of revenge. Their language was calm, technical, and cold. They spoke of range, of timing, of efficiency. The galaxy cannot see any of this. That was the point. Alien intelligence agencies noticed unusual activity. At first, the reports were ignored. Minor industrial changes. One analyst said, they are rebuilding after loss. But the data kept coming. Human energy consumption increased sharply. Mining operations expanded. Asteroid belts were stripped faster than expected. Long-range human scanners began to sweep deep space, far beyond defensive range. Still, no fleets moved. Still, no threats came. The silence began to feel wrong. An alien observer posted near human space sent a warning to his superiors. Humans are not acting afraid, he said. They are acting patient. The message was dismissed. 3 weeks after the destruction of Haven Reach, a single human diplomat returned to the Galactic Council. No escort, no guards, just one human, dressed in a simple dark uniform, standing alone in the massive council chamber. The alien delegates watched with interest. Some smiled, some prepared demands. The human did not sit. They did not bow. They did not raise their voice. They simply spoke. Humanity acknowledges your ruling regarding Haven Reach. Murmurs spread across the chamber. The human continued. We accept that, under your laws, the destruction was justified. Some delegates nodded proudly. Then the human added one more sentence. Humanity also accepts that those laws no longer apply to us. The chamber fell silent. Security systems activated automatically. Council leaders demanded clarification. The human only said, "Civilization is a choice. We made ours." Then they turned and left. No threats, no warnings, just words that did not sound dangerous, yet somehow were. After that meeting, the galaxy changed its tone. Alien merchants avoided human borders. Military patrols increased. Some empires quietly moved fleets closer to defensive positions. Still, no human ships appeared. Weeks passed, then months. The silence stretched longer than anyone expected. History records show this period as the most unsettling time in modern galactic memory, because every species knew one truth. Predators did not go silent after being wounded. They went quiet before they struck. Inside Earth's deepest command center, screens displayed hundreds of star systems. Human commanders watched simulations, not of victory, of endings. They studied alien logistics, command structures, communication delays, weak points no one thought mattered. They prepared for wars not meant to last long, wars meant to end permanently. One junior officer asked a question that echoed through the room. Should we send a warning? The senior commander shook his head. No, they already know. Another officer asked, what if they surrender? The reply came without hesitation. Too late. The first sign of human movement came without sound. No alarms. No announcements. Deep space sensors detected something impossible. Human fleets were leaving their systems. Not in large formations. Not in predictable paths. They moved silently, without active signals, using routes long believed unusable. Alien sensors struggled to track them. By the time warnings were issued, the fleets were already gone, headed toward a destination no one wanted to say out loud. On an alien homeworld, the same empire that led the attack on Haven Reach, celebrations were underway. They believed the crisis was over. Humanity had been taught a lesson. They were wrong. High above the planet, space folded, and something massive began to arrive. The silence was over, and the galaxy was about to understand why humanity had been quiet for so long. The first human ships arrived without warning. There were no flashing lights, no challenge signals, no loud formations meant to scare. They simply appeared. Alien defense stations detected them too late. By the time alarms sounded, human vessels were already inside the system, moving with perfect control and terrifying calm. Alien commanders rushed to their stations. Screens filled with human ship signatures. Far more than expected. This is not possible, one commander said. They had no fleets near our space. Yet there they were. Human ships moved like they had rehearsed this moment for years. Because they had. Before a single weapon fired, every screen on the alien homeworld changed. Military displays, news channels, civilian networks, all replaced by the same image. A human stood before a dark background. No symbols, no flags, no anger on their face. They began to speak. My name does not matter, the human said calmly. What matters is what you did. Images appeared beside them. Haven Reach, burning cities, collapsed shelters, silent streets. The human continued, voice steady. You destroyed an unarmed colony. You called it enforcement. You called it acceptable. The image changed again. Alien council footage. Their ruling. Their approval. You believed our silence meant fear, the human said. You believed restraint meant weakness. The human paused, then said the words that would echo through history. We are done being civilized. Alien leaders shouted orders. Shut it down. Fire now. But it was too late. The message was not a threat. It was a statement. Human fleets began to move. The first strikes were precise. No cities were targeted. No civilians were touched. Instead, power grids vanished. Military docks exploded in controlled bursts. Defense satellites went dark one by one. Alien ships launched in panic, but they were disorganized. Their command systems were already compromised. Human ships did not chase. They waited. When alien fleets formed, humans struck once, and entire squadrons were disabled, drifting powerless through space. Not destroyed. Disabled. Human commanders watched silently. They were not there to prove strength. They were there to remove it. On the surface of the alien homeworld, panic spread. Lights went out across continents. Transportation failed. Communication collapsed. Citizens demanded answers. Their leaders had none. Military officers begged the Galactic Council for help. The Council responded with confusion. Human fleets were attacking multiple systems at once. Not random systems. Strategic ones. Shipyards. Training worlds. Command hubs. Entire empires were being stripped of their ability to fight. Methodically, coldly, a captured alien officer was brought aboard a human command ship. He was old, decorated, confident, until now. He stared at the human officer across from him. "You could have done this before," the alien said. "Why didn't you?" The human answered without hesitation. "Because we believed rules mattered." The alien laughed bitterly. "Rules only matter to those who lose." The human leaned forward slightly. "And now," they said, "you will?" The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Fear filled the chamber. Species that once mocked humanity now whispered in panic. They are ignoring the laws. They are destabilizing the balance. They must be stopped. A single voice asked a question no one wanted to answer. Stopped how? No one replied. Because the truth was clear. The humans were not breaking galactic law. They were operating outside it. Another broadcast interrupted the session. This time, it came from Earth. The same human figure appeared again. Their voice was unchanged. "This is not revenge," they said. "Revenge is emotional. This is correction." They displayed a list. Names of worlds, fleets, commanders. Every military force involved in the Haven Reach atrocity will be neutralized. The human continued. No exceptions. A pause. "We will not attack civilians. We will not destroy cultures. But we will remove your ability to harm others." The final sentence landed like a weapon. Mercy is no longer guaranteed. Across the galaxy, human fleets advanced. Some alien forces surrendered immediately. Others resisted. Those who resisted learned quickly. Human tactics adapted instantly. They predicted enemy moves with frightening accuracy. It was as if humans had already fought these battles before, because they had, in simulations, for years. On a distant world, an alien governor watched human ships enter orbit. He opened a channel, desperation in his voice. "We surrender," he said. "Please, we surrender." The human response was immediate. "Your fleet has already launched weapons." "Yes, but we can stop them." "You already chose," the human replied. The fleet was disabled in seconds. The governor collapsed. As days passed, the galaxy changed its language. Humanity was no longer called weak, or soft, or dangerous. They were called something far worse. Inevitable. In the quiet of human command centers, no one celebrated. There were no cheers, only quiet voices and steady hands. One officer finally spoke the thought many feared. "What happens when this ends?" The commander looked at the stars. "It ends," they said, "when the galaxy understands the cost of atrocity." Far away, in systems yet untouched, alien leaders watched the reports. And for the first time in galactic history, they were afraid of humans not because of rage, but because of control. The declaration had been made. Mercy was no longer assumed. And the galaxy was about to learn what that truly meant. The galaxy finally understood. This was not a war meant to be won. It was a war meant to be finished. Human fleets did not rush. They did not chase glory or territory. They moved with slow, unstoppable precision, like a force of nature that could not be argued with. System by system, empire by empire, human ships arrived. And every time, the same pattern followed. First, communication died. Then power. Then command. Alien militaries collapsed before they could even form a defense. On one heavily fortified world, alien admirals believed they were ready. Their planet was surrounded by thousands of warships. Defense platforms filled the sky. Planetary shields glowed with full power. They welcomed the human fleet with confidence. "This is where we stop them," an admiral said. The human ships did not respond. They did not slow down. Instead, space itself seemed to change. Human weapons activated that did not explode, burn, or shatter. They silenced. Energy waves passed through shields without resistance. Control systems shut down at once. Entire fleets lost power and drifted helplessly in orbit. The alien admiral stared at his screens in disbelief. "They didn't break the shield," he whispered. "They ignored it." Human ships passed the disabled fleet and took positions above the planet. Still, they did not fire. A message appeared on every alien channel. "This world is no longer a threat." A human voice said calmly, "Stand down and no further action will be taken." Some alien officers begged their leaders to surrender. Others refused. Those who refused learned the difference between mercy and restraint. Human ground forces landed. They were few in number. They did not shout. They did not loot. They did not kill unless attacked. But when attacked, they ended resistance with terrifying speed. Alien weapons failed against human armor. Human tactics adapted instantly. Every ambush failed. Every defense collapsed. Within hours, the planet's military command surrendered. Human forces withdrew. They did not occupy. They did not claim land. They left behind one thing: fear. Across the galaxy, reports spread. Human fleets were not destroying worlds. They were disarming them. Empires that had ruled for centuries were reduced to silence in days. Alien historians struggled to understand. "How are they doing this?" one asked. The answer was simple. Humans had studied war not as conquest, but as a problem to be solved. In one captured alien command center, a senior alien officer was questioned. "You are fighting like machines," he said bitterly. "No emotion, no pride." The human officer replied quietly, "Emotion is what we removed." The alien laughed. "Then what are you now?" The human met his eyes. "Correct." The Galactic Council was breaking apart. Member worlds accused each other. Alliances collapsed. Old rivals blamed one another for provoking humanity. Emergency meetings achieved nothing. Every plan assumed humans wanted something: territory, resources, power. But humans wanted only one thing: finality. On Earth, the public finally learned the truth. Human leaders released footage, not propaganda. Records, Haven Reach, the Council ruling, the preparations. The message was clear. This is not a war of anger, Earth's leaders said. This is a war to ensure it never happens again. Most humans did not cheer. They understood the cost. But they did not object. An alien empire attempted a desperate move. They launched weapons toward Earth. The missiles never arrived. Human defense systems detected them instantly. The launch world lost its fleet, command structure, and planetary weapons in less than 10 minutes. No human ships were lost. The galaxy watched in horror. For the first time, the truth became undeniable. Humans were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to decide who was allowed to fight at all. A surviving alien general finally spoke words that spread everywhere. "We thought humans were dangerous because they feel too much," he said. "We were wrong. They are dangerous because they know exactly when to stop feeling." In the final major battle, human fleets surrounded the original attackers' core systems. Every remaining ship was trapped. Every weapon tracked. A final transmission came from the alien leadership. "We surrender," they said. "We admit wrongdoing. We beg for mercy." The human response came after a long pause. "You surrendered after you lost the ability to harm others," the human voice said. "That is not mercy. That is timing." The fleets were disabled. The war was over. Silence returned to the galaxy. But this silence was different. It was heavy, permanent. Alien civilizations rebuilt slowly, carefully, always watching human space. No one tested boundaries again. No one crossed lines. because everyone now understood the truth humanity had proven. They were not the strongest. They were not the largest. They were not the most violent. They were the ones who ended wars by choice. In a quiet human command room, an officer asked the final question. Was this worth it? The commander looked at the stars where Haven Reach once shined. It had to be, they said. Humanity had unleashed its true power. Not destruction, not rage, but control. And the galaxy would never forget it. The war ended without celebration. Human fleets stopped moving. Weapons powered down. Systems once filled with battle. Reports returned to quiet monitoring. Across the galaxy, leaders waited. They did not know what came next. That uncertainty was worse than war. The Galactic Council met again, but it was no longer the same council. Seats were empty. Some worlds had lost their fleets. Others had lost their confidence. A few had lost their pride. They had once spoken to humanity as teachers. Now they spoke as survivors. One by one, delegates asked the same question in different ways. What do the humans want? No one had an answer. Human ships did not demand territory. They did not take resources. They did not place flags on conquered worlds. They simply waited. Fear spread slowly. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that keeps leaders awake at night. Alien worlds began changing their laws. Militaries were reduced. Long-forbidden rules against civilian harm were suddenly enforced, not because of morality, because of memory. Everyone remembered Haven Reach. Everyone remembered what followed. At last, the Galactic Council sent a formal request to Earth, not a demand, a request. They asked for dialogue. They asked for a return to civilized standards. The message reached Earth's highest command. Human leaders read it in silence. Then they agreed to speak. The meeting was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, humans appeared openly again. A human representative stood before the camera. No weapons, no symbols, just a calm face. You are asking us to return to civilization, the human said. Yes, the council replied quickly. The galaxy needs rules, balance, order. The human nodded slowly. Where were those rules, they asked, when Haven Reach burned? Silence filled the chamber. The human continued. Civilization is not words. It is behavior. They showed the footage again, not to threaten, to remind. You called Atrocity enforcement, the human said. You protected the guilty. You punished the peaceful. The council tried to respond. We did not expect. The human raised one hand. Expectation does not erase responsibility. Some alien delegates bowed their heads. Others argued. This war destabilized the galaxy. One shouted. Millions suffered. Yes, the human replied calmly. And now you understand why rules matter. That answer ended the debate. The council asked carefully, what will humanity accept? The human representative paused, then spoke slowly. First, they said, atrocity will no longer be judged by politics, only by action. Second, unarmed populations are never targets. No exceptions. Third, those who approve crimes are as guilty as those who commit them. Murmurs spread. These rules were strict, uncomfortable, necessary. And finally, the human said, enforcement will be permanent. The council froze. You mean human enforcement? One asked. Yes. Fear filled the chamber. Some worlds objected. Others resisted. But most understood. They had seen what happened when humans were ignored. They voted. The new laws passed. Not because the galaxy agreed, but because the galaxy remembered. Human fleets withdrew further. They did not disappear. They stayed visible, watching, waiting. The message was clear. Civilization had returned, but it was guarded. On alien worlds, children learned new lessons in school, not about fear, about limits. Teachers spoke of Haven Reach as a warning, of how ignoring mercy invited disaster. Parents told their children stories of humans, not as monsters, but as judges. An alien historian published a final report. Humanity did not conquer the galaxy, he wrote. They corrected it. The report spread everywhere. On Earth, the population slowly returned to normal life. Factories reopened for civilian use. Military production slowed. Fleets returned to patrol instead of attack. But something had changed forever. Humanity was no longer invisible. In a quiet room, a young human officer asked an older commander a question. "Do you think they will ever forgive us?" The commander considered it. "No," they said, "but they will remember. And that is better." Years later, a small alien world faced a choice. Their leaders considered attacking a weaker neighbor. Weapons were prepared. Plans were made. Then someone asked a single question. What if the humans notice? The attack was canceled. No message from Earth. No threat. Just memory. The galaxy had begged for civilization. Humanity gave it back. But not as a gift, as a responsibility. And everyone understood one final truth. Civilization survived because humanity decided it was worth protecting. Years passed after the war. The galaxy did not return to how it was before. It became quieter. Borders were respected. Fleets stayed within their systems. Conflicts ended in talks instead of fire. Not because the galaxy had become kinder, but because it had become careful. Human fleets still existed, but they were rarely seen. They did not patrol aggressively. They did not interfere without cause. Yet everyone knew they were there, watching, waiting, remembering. Haven Reach became a name spoken with care. Memorials were built across human space. Not grand statues or symbols of hate. Just simple lights in the dark, each one representing a lost life. Human children were taught the story early, not as a tale of victory, but as a warning. Teachers explained that humanity had chosen civilization long before the war. They had believed rules protected the innocent. They also taught why that belief failed. On an alien world far from Earth, a council debated a new law. One leader suggested weakening civilian protections for security reasons. Another stood and shook their head. "No," they said quietly. "We know how that story ends." The law was rejected. No human message arrived. None was needed. The Galactic Council still existed, but it no longer ruled with arrogance. Human representatives attended meetings again, silent but present. They rarely spoke. When they did, everyone listened. One council member once asked a human delegate a careful question. "Why did you stop?" the alien asked. "You could have ruled us." The human answered simply, "Because rule was never the goal." "What was?" the alien asked, never needing to do it again. Historians struggle to define what humanity had become. Some call them guardians. Others call them executioners. Most agreed on one thing. Humanity had changed the meaning of power. Power was no longer about domination. It was about restraint backed by certainty. On Earth, life moved forward. Cities grew. Art returned. Music filled spaces once used for planning war. People laughed again. But humanity was not the same. It never would be. There was a quiet understanding shared by all humans. Civilization was not automatic. It had to be defended. A young human officer once asked a retired commander a question. "Do you regret it?" The officer asked. "What we did." The commander thought for a long time. "I regret that it was necessary," they said. "I do not regret doing it." The officer nodded. That answer spread. One day, a distant alien empire tested the limits. Not with weapons, with cruelty. A small human trade outpost was harassed. Supplies were seized. Civilians were threatened. No one was killed. The alien leaders believed they were safe. They were wrong. A human message arrived within hours. Short, clear, "You are approaching a line." The harassment stopped immediately. Apologies followed. Reparations were paid. No human ships arrived. The lesson was learned anyway. The galaxy began to tell stories. Stories of how humans once chose peace. How they endured insults. How they forgave attacks. Until they could not. These stories were not told to scare children. They were told to remind leaders. An alien philosopher wrote, "Humans are not violent by nature. They are dangerous by necessity." The book became required reading in many worlds. Decades later, the Haven Reach system was rebuilt, not as a colony, as a sanctuary. No weapons were allowed. No military presence existed. Any species could visit. It stood as proof that humanity still believed in peace, but not blindness. At the opening ceremony, a human speaker addressed a mixed crowd of species. We are often asked what changed us. They said, "We say nothing changed. We were always capable of this. We simply hoped we would never need to prove it." The crowd stood in silence. Far above, human satellites watched quietly, not threatening, not aggressive, present. The galaxy had learned the cost of atrocity, not through endless war, but through one decisive answer. Humanity had not abandoned civilization. They had redefined it. Civilization was no longer just laws and words. It was accountability. It was protection of the weak. It was the promise that mercy would be honored, and the certainty that it would be withdrawn if abused. And so the galaxy endured. Not perfect, not peaceful, but careful, because somewhere among the stars lived a species that preferred kindness, but never forgot how to end cruelty. This was the new meaning of civilization, and no one dared forget it.